Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I think that many of us are aware that there is a season upon us that an observant Jew cannot participate in. I know you all know what I mean. Starting around maybe mid-November, it is Dungeness crab season. Yes. This animal is native to the west coast of North America, and when you cook this crab, its shell turns this beautiful deep orange like the Golden Gate Bridge, and you crack it open with a nutcracker and you eat the sweet meat with a good sourdough until you decide to be more observant. Yeah. So as you may have guessed, the topic for today's sermon is kashrut. The reason that I will be discussing kashrut is we've had several incidents since I became the rabbi here where our community kashrut has been violated, sometimes as an innocent mistake, and sometimes with an attitude of, well, what people don't know won't hurt them. So I wanted to start by addressing why is kashrut important in the first place? What are the reasons that people might choose to keep kosher? One reason that's offered is that kashrut encourages us to eat animals that are cleaner than other animals. Maimonides is very famous for writing an essay on this topic about how filthy swine are. The challenge with this argument today, though, is in industrialized farming, pretty much every animal we eat is filthy. Most animals are raised in CAFOs, centralized animal feeding operations, which basically means cram as many animals as you can in a pen, let them walk around in their feces and, fatten them up, give them antibiotics, and then slaughter them and hope no one gets sick. So, but perhaps that argument of kashrut, that it should be about eating things which are clean, might encourage us to be reflective on our eating habits in general and want to be more conscious of eating animals that are raised on smaller farms in better conditions. Another reason that people say they keep kosher, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who was a great name in the conservative movement, and he went on to form the Reconstructionist movement, he gave the reason that it would prevent intermarriage. Now, I have yet to meet someone who says, I love you so much, sweetheart, but you eat spare ribs, so we just can't be together. I'm not sure that argument worked out very well for Kaplan. Furthermore, I think the world has changed since he was a rabbi. I think we've become much more inclusive and welcoming of families that are intermarried, and now I think kashrut encourages us to ask the question of how can we help those families grow in their spirituality and take on mitzvot just like we would with any other family. A third reason that people keep kosher is God commands us to do so. If you look in the Torah, we are told, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk, or please don't eat these certain animals. But the challenge with that argument, as my 7th graders told me this Sunday when we studied the notion of commandedness, is essentially it came down to this for them: God is not the boss of me, which is developmentally appropriate for a teenager, and I think many adults would share that sentiment. However, perhaps kashrut can encourage us to think about being beholden to an authority higher than ourselves. Another reason that people keep kosher is they say the slaughter of a kosher animal is the least cruel way to kill an animal possible. It is a very sharp blade, it is a very deep cut, it is over very quickly. But if we were really concerned about cruelty to animals, wouldn't we be vegetarians? However, we are created to be omnivores. If you look at our teeth and our guts, we are meant to consume meat as well as vegetables. Furthermore, there is Jewish halakha that says on festive occasions you really should eat meat to show that it's a festive occasion. But perhaps kashrut encourages us to think about cruelty in general and how to be less cruel in the world. Then, and this one is the most meaningful to me, I think it is an encouragement to have spiritual discipline around consumption. So for me, it's arbitrary which animals are kosher or not kosher, but by giving up Dungeness crab, I am I'm displaying a discipline upon what I consume, which hopefully will spill over into other areas. Other material goods. Do I need to consume this item? If I do, what is the impact it has on other human beings and the environment when it is produced? Or even emotional consumption. If I take up this space in a room, if I'm pulling this kind of attention and love, is someone else going without? The final reason that I can think of that people keep kosher is it's the communal standard. It's something that our ancestors have done. It's something we anticipate our descendants doing. It is the Jewish way to eat. It might not be a Jewish individual's way to eat, but it is the Jewish collective's way to eat, and it puts me and us in a chain of tradition. The synagogue, for a long time, was a place where one could expect to walk in as a guest and receive a kosher meal. That's why we still have Kiddush on Friday night. It's vestigial from a custom left over from a time when a Jew would be traveling, say one merchant in medieval Europe needed to go from the Ukraine to Poland, and maybe wasn't safe staying in hotels or couldn't acquire kosher food in hotels. It was always assumed that if you showed up in a synagogue on Friday night, you would be provided with room and board. And that's why we still do Kiddush on Friday night in the synagogue as well as our homes. So part of why we keep that communal norm is hachnasat orchim, being welcoming to all of our guests who may need to consume kosher food and have a natural assumption walking into a synagogue that the food is kosher and hasn't violated the Sabbath. But I think more importantly than welcoming guests is being welcoming to all of our members. Conservative Judaism is a pluralistic movement. We have members with many different beliefs and many different spiritual practices. In San Francisco, we had a vegetarian potluck about once a month. And there was a minority who kept strictly kosher. They were concerned about consuming food at the vegetarian potluck because the Pyrex pan that had brownies in it tonight may have had pork in it the previous night. So the solution was, well, we'll have a kosher table, a strictly kosher table at the potluck, and every week, every month, for the 2 years that I worked there, here is what was on that kosher table. Some carrot sticks and some hummus, while everyone else got to eat a delicious home-cooked meal. It wasn't very inclusive. So for me, it's not a question of, well, the majority of us don't keep kosher and it's this minority that does. For me, it's a question of welcoming all of our members and being able to eat together. Here's what we're going to do about the kitchen. I consulted with the ritual committee, and 2 documents were shared with me that were old kashrut policies that have fallen by the wayside. So I looked them over and I combined them. So we have a current policy. It has been distributed to board members so everyone can be clear on what the rules are in our communal setting. Then in January, possibly February, I'm going to teach a course. I'll teach it twice so people have more than one opportunity to take it. Even members who have been using the kitchen for years are required to come to the class just to make sure we're all clear on what the rules are. After that time, the kitchen is going to be locked. Anyone who's taken the class or would like to take the class in the future will be issued a key. They're free to use the kitchen and come and go on their own authority. But everyone else will need to either have one of them present to help guide them in their cooking or come and learn with me. You know, when I go to San Francisco tomorrow, I won't be partaking of one of my favorite childhood treats. And some of it is that, most of it is that it's a personal spiritual practice to keep kosher. But there's also a piece of it, which is that I have a brit with you. We have a covenant, we have an understanding together. And I'm going to uphold our communal norm because even though I'm in San Francisco, the rules of our community still apply to me, and I want to honor you that way. Shabbat Shalom.